The ACT Party leader David Seymour says it's only a matter of time before a dairy worker is killed if secure vending machines aren't installed to prevent smash and grab thefts from dairies. Dairy owners we've heard from earlier in the program told us they can't afford to give up selling cigarettes because it accounts for up to half their sales. The people who come in to buy cigarettes also buy other things often too. But Mr Seymour says if vending machines were installed, violent robberies would stop within a year, and he told me via LiveView he knows how to pay for it.
Well, I'm suggesting that the next scheduled 10% increase in tobacco tax be held back for the retailers so they can invest in security, because we're seeing an epidemic of people with knives and guns and baseball bats doing over some of the best New Zealanders, who are mainly immigrants who have come to New Zealand to give their kids a better life, and they run small businesses, and they wonder each day if it's going to be them that's going to get beaten up for tobacco. And the reason that people are going after tobacco is because of the tax. Putting a $20 tax on a packet of cigarettes means that a brick of cigarettes is worth almost $300 now. The government has turned cigarettes into gold bars, and that's what's motivating these crimes. I've just modestly suggested to the government that giving them the 10% increase next year to spend on new technology, dispensing machines that stop robberies would be the smart thing to do. Some of the big chain stores are already installing this technology, but what about the mum and dad stores that can't afford it and would go out of business if it wasn't for their cigarette sales?
You've been speaking to dairy owners, have you?
Yeah, I've talked to a few. We had the crime prevention group meeting. These are a bunch of people, mainly from across southern and western Auckland, who are just sick of being victimised.
Okay, so it would work the same way. They would make the same markup. The machine would still be in their dairy, but instead of buying cigarettes over the counter, exposing whoever's working to risk, you would have to put the money into the machine and get them a packet at a time.
More or less, yeah. I mean, the ones that Gull have installed in one of their stores as a trial, only one pack can come out at a time, and only when you put a transaction through the FPOS machine at the store. So it makes it completely impractical to rob one of these places. This policy could actually end tobacco robbery within a year if there was the political will to do it. Sadly, the government hasn't listened, and I take nothing out of this, but I have to say I think someone's going to be killed given the nature of these robberies and the frequency of them.
And the vast majority, somewhere in the region of 80% of the money that the dairies are collecting is going to the government, right?
Yeah, that's right. So look, I mean, I'd say, I don't know, it's $25, $26 for a packet. About $17 of that is tax. The average dairy sells about $200,000 worth of tax and about $50,000 worth of cigarettes every year. And I'm just proposing that you'd give them next year's increase, because next year it'll be $220,000 of tax with the 10% increases. Give them next year's increase so that they can invest in some technology. One of these machines costs about $30,000. Let's let them make a start at that, because otherwise the smaller business owners are just getting persecuted in the name of the government's war on drugs.
Okay, two questions. One is that someone could just steal a machine, couldn't they?
Oh, sure. I mean, look, there's always going to be the better mousetrap, better mouse argument, but these things are pretty heavy and pretty solid, so people are going to have to be a hell of a lot more organised and probably a lot less violent and clever in order to do it. I'm sure that might happen in some cases, but vastly different from what happens now, where you go in with a weapon, bash up the owner, potentially maim or even kill them, and just take it straight off the shelves.
And the other question is, of course, these machines at some level are a form of branding, right? So you can see the cigarettes, the machines are out in the shop. How do you get around the prohibitions now? Because, of course, when you buy cigarettes, you can no longer see them until they're given to you.
Yeah. So the ones that have been installed by Gull, actually, they actually build into part of the counter. They're totally out of sight. They're less visible than what you have now, actually. Think of it as a cross between a safe and a vending machine. But look, I mean, that's one option that they might use the money for. Other options are having more security guards, having panic rooms, having bars and so on. I just think if you ask a business person to collect a couple of $100,000 of tax and put themselves in harm's way for the government, maybe it's time for the government to give them some support, because there ain't going to be enough police trained in time. Giving them more self-defence rights will create an arms race. This is a practical solution that could end tobacco robberies in a year.
David Seymour speaking to us earlier this afternoon.